Okay, so you want to own an airport, thousands of acres of land, giant paved runways, massive glass terminals, and millions of passengers flowing through your gates every single year. You watch planes taking off every few minutes, and you picture the cash register ringing every time a wheel touches the pavement. You look at a packed terminal full of captive travelers paying $8 for a bottle of water and $15 for a cold sandwich, and you think to yourself, this place must be an absolute gold mine. Thousands of people, zero competition, infinite demand. Simple. Here is the problem. You are looking at the one part of the business that barely keeps the lights on. The truth is that a commercial airport is not really an aviation business. It is a specialized, high security real estate development that happens to have airplanes parked outside. And the moment you understand that fundamental difference, everything about how an airport makes money and how it quietly bleeds millions of dollars in fixed overhead starts to make complete sense. Let's start with what it actually takes to unlock the gates, because the price tag for a commercial airport is unlike almost any other asset on Earth. You cannot simply buy a piece of farmland, pour a strip of asphalt, and tell Delta or United to land their planes. Before a single commercial airliner touches down, you are looking at capital costs that start in the hundreds of millions and easily scale into the billions of dollars. First, the land itself. A modern commercial airport requires a massive footprint, typically anywhere from 2,000 to over 30,000 acres, to accommodate runways, taxiways, terminals, parking structures, and mandatory noise buffers for surrounding communities. Then comes the paving. An airport runway is not standard highway asphalt. It is thick, reinforced structural concrete designed to withstand hundreds of thousands of pounds of impact force when a fully loaded Boeing 777 slams onto the ground at 150 miles per hour. Constructing a single commercial grade runway can cost between $50 million and $200 million depending on length, soil conditions, and geographic terrain. And you almost never need just one. A serious commercial hub requires multiple parallel or intersecting runways, along with miles of connecting taxiways, high-speed exit ramps, and reinforced apron parking areas. Then comes the air control and safety infrastructure. Advanced instrument landing systems, ground movement radar, high-intensity airfield lighting, and specialized crash, fire, and rescue facilities, known in the industry as ARFF. Building a single ARFF station equipped with specialized foam tenders capable of extinguishing jet fuel fires can cost $10 million to $30 million alone. Add in the passenger terminal, a massive, climate-controlled facility equipped with baggage handling systems running miles of conveyor belts, advanced security checkpoints, glass jet bridges, and redundant power grids. And even a small regional commercial airport requires $300 million to $800 million just to get certified. For a major international hub, that entry price tag climbs past $5 billion to $10 billion before a single passenger buys a coffee. Now, here is where the naive mental model starts to break down. You assume that because planes are the biggest, loudest, and most visible part of the airport, they must be where the real money is made. They aren't. In the airport industry, revenue is split strictly into two distinct categories: aeronautical revenue and non-aeronautical revenue. And understanding the battle between these two line items is the key to understanding airport economics. Aeronautical revenue is everything directly tied to operating the aircraft. This includes landing fees, gate usage fees, fuel flowage fees, and aircraft parking charges. When an airline lands a plane at your airport, you charge them a landing fee based on the maximum takeoff weight of the aircraft. For a standard narrow-body jet, that fee might range from $500 to $2,000 per landing. Sound lucrative? Here is the catch. Airlines are ruthless negotiators. They operate on razor-thin margins and hold immense leverage over airports. If an airport tries to raise its landing fees too high, the major airlines will simply pull their flights, reroute their connecting hubs to a competing city, and leave the airport with a billion-dollar empty concrete shell. To prevent airports from exploiting their physical location, regulatory frameworks like the Federal Aviation Administration in the United States enforce strict cost recovery models for aeronautical fees. In plain English, airports are legally restricted from making massive, unbridled profits on landing fees. In most cases, aeronautical charges are capped at whatever it costs to physically maintain the airfield itself. So, if the runways and gates barely generate a profit after accounting for maintenance and safety expenses, where does the real money come from? It comes from the people standing inside the building. Welcome to non-aeronautical revenue. This is the real financial engine of every successful commercial airport on planet Earth. Parking garages, rental car concessions, retail stores, duty-free shops, restaurants, terminal advertising, and commercial land leases outside the fence. Think about the psychological state of an airport traveler. Once a passenger passes through security, they enter what economists call a hyper-captive environment. They cannot leave. They are anxious about missing their flight. They have anywhere from 1 to 3 hours of forced downtime, and they have zero access to outside competition. Airport concessionaires don't pay standard retail rent. They pay a base rent plus a percentage of gross sales, often ranging from 12% to 20% of every item sold. When you buy a $10 bottle of water or a $20 airport burger, the airport authority is quietly taking a direct slice of that transaction. And then there is the holy grail of airport revenue: parking. Parking structures are, square foot for square foot, the most profitable assets in the entire airport portfolio. Once the concrete structure is built, the ongoing operational cost of running a parking garage is minimal. Automated ticket gates, lighting, and basic security. Yet, major airports generate tens or even hundreds of millions of dollars annually purely by letting automobiles sit on empty concrete slabs for $40 a day. At many top-tier airports, parking and ground transportation alone account for over 30% to 40% of the institution's entire net operating income. Let's slow down and actually look at the math that governs this business. Imagine a mid-sized commercial airport handling roughly 5 million passengers a year. On the aeronautical side, landing fees, terminal gate leases, and ramp handling fees might pull in $30 million annually. But maintaining the runways, paying the airfield operations staff, running the ARFF fire stations, and servicing the debt on the tarmac assets costs $28 million. The net margin on the core aviation activity is a paltry $2 million. Now look at the non-aeronautical side of the same building. Parking and ground transportation pull in $25 million. Concession rents and food sales bring in $15 million. Rental car facility fees bring in $10 million. Terminal advertising and land leases bring in another $5 million. Total non-aeronautical revenue, $55 million. The cost to run the terminal retail area, parking garages, and administrative offices, roughly $15 million. Net profit on the non-aeronautical side, $40 million. Read those numbers again. The planes brought in $2 million in net margin. The hot dogs, parking spaces, and rental cars brought in $40 million. The entire financial existence of a commercial airport rests on a simple premise. Use the airplanes as loss leaders to attract millions of captive human beings, and then monetize their idle time and vehicles. Now, let's talk about what can go wrong. Because when the airport business model fails, it doesn't fail quietly. It triggers a financial catastrophe that can drag down municipal budgets for decades. The greatest operational risk an airport faces is customer concentration risk. Most mid-sized regional airports rely heavily on a single anchor tenant, a major airline that uses the airport as a hub or secondary base. Consider what happened to Pittsburgh International Airport in the early 2000s. U.S. Airways operated a massive primary hub in Pittsburgh, accounting for over 80% of all passenger traffic. To accommodate U.S. Airways, the local airport authority constructed a state-of-the-art $1 billion terminal complex financed through long-term municipal bonds. Then came the aftermath of 2001 and the subsequent airline industry restructuring. U.S. Airways entered bankruptcy, merged with America West, and systematically dismantled its Pittsburgh hub to cut costs. Flight counts collapsed, passenger traffic cratered by over 60%, and Pittsburgh was left holding a massive, empty $1 billion terminal with millions of dollars in annual bond payments coming due every single month. The remaining airlines saw their per-passenger costs skyrocket, creating a vicious cycle where higher fees drove even more flights away. This exposes the structural trap of airport ownership. Fixed costs are absolute, but traffic is volatile. An airport runway must be swept, lit, inspected, and maintained whether 10 planes land on it a day or 200. The security gates must be manned, the terminal must be heated and cooled, and the municipal bondholders must be paid every single quarter, regardless of global pandemics, airline bankruptcies, or economic recessions. When global air travel ground to a sudden unprecedented halt in early 2020, airports worldwide saw passenger traffic drop by over 90% in a matter of weeks. The concession sales vanished overnight. The parking garages stood completely empty. Yet, the fixed overhead and debt service costs remained virtually unchanged. Only massive emergency government bailouts prevented dozens of privatized and municipal airports across the globe from defaulting on their debt obligations. So, how does an airport owner build a business structure resilient enough to survive these catastrophic downturns? They diversify far beyond the passenger terminal. The most sophisticated airport operators don't limit their real estate plays to the passenger concourse. They build what urban planners call an aerotropolis, a master-planned commercial zone surrounding the airport perimeter. Air cargo is the first major pillar of this strategy. Freight aircraft don't care about shiny terminals, duty-free shopping, or fancy restaurants. They care about warehouse space, logistics handling, and direct highway access. Leasing airfield land to global logistics giants like FedEx, UPS, and DHL creates long-term, highly stable lease revenue that is completely decoupled from passenger travel cycles. Second, industrial parks and commercial real estate. Land surrounding an airport is uniquely suited for cold storage facilities, manufacturing plants, hotel chains, and corporate offices that require constant regional transport access. By converting unused perimeter land into long-term commercial ground leases, the airport creates a steady stream of recurring rental income that flows in 365 days a year, regardless of whether passenger airlines are cutting routes. Now, let's look at the ultimate balance sheet comparison for a mid-sized commercial airport across a full operating year. In a strong year, with 10 million passengers flowing through the gates, a well-managed airport can generate $150 million in total revenue, $60 million from aeronautical fees, and $90 million from non-aeronautical sources. Operating expenses, including payroll, utilities, maintenance, security, and administrative overhead, take $80 million. Debt service on construction bonds takes another $40 million. That leaves a clean $30 million in net operating surplus money that can be reinvested into facility upgrades, runway repaving reserves, or lowering fees to attract new airline routes. In a bad year triggered by an economic downturn, a local airline hub closure, or skyrocketing jet fuel prices, passenger volume drops by 25%. Aeronautical revenue falls to $45 million, while non-aeronautical revenue plummets to $55 million as parking lots and concessions empty out. Total revenue shrinks to $100 million. However, because airport operational costs are overwhelmingly fixed, operating expenses can only be trimmed slightly to $75 million, while the $40 million debt service payment remains completely fixed. The airport moves from a $30 million surplus straight into a $15 million net operating loss in a single fiscal year. The difference between those two scenarios isn't determined by how well the air traffic controllers manage the skies or how clean the runways are. It is determined by traffic volume, debt structure, and how effectively the airport manager extracts revenue from the captive human beings walking through the terminal doors. If you ever decide to invest in or operate a commercial airport asset, remember the fundamental truth that sits beneath this entire industry. You are not selling flight tickets, and you are not running an airline. You are operating a captive commercial real estate ecosystem with a runway attached to it. The airplanes are simply the shuttle buses that deliver your real customers straight to your storefronts.